Yeah, she was murdered. It was a huge murder case back in 2001. She was a law student at UGA. Someone broke her door, murdered her.
So, man, going well. How you doing? How well does this road lights work? I have a set. I have a little use. I have a DJI. The one. They were so good. You're going away. You're still here. On the resolution of Elijah and Stringer? I heard he's on there for so long.
I'll back. I just want to
So
Maybe you can do some preliminary stuff before that when it comes to the contract.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. I'm Chris Hosey, Director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Standing here at the podium with me today is Athens Clarke County Police Chief Jerry Salters, FBI Atlanta SAC Kerry Farley, Western Judicial Circuit District Attorney Deborah Gonzalez, State Representative Houston Gaines, the family of Tara Baker. Also in the audience today is University of Georgia Police Chief Jeff Clark, members of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, our personnel, and members of our state sister agency, the Georgia State Patrol. Again, thank you for being here. I will ask you as we proceed through this press conference today, and the judicial process that is involved when you ask your questions and receive our responses. On January 19th, 2001, was devastated a family, the University of Georgia campus, and the community of Athens Clarke County, with its effects being felt throughout the state of Georgia. For over 2 decades, investigators have worked tirelessly to find answers for the family and friends of Tara Louise Baker and bring some amount of closure and healing to this horrific event. With an arrest in this investigation last week, it is my prayer that this process has begun. The recent events in the Tara Baker investigation also send a strong message that justice has no expiration, and law enforcement in this state of Georgia, will never stop seeking answers to these tragic events. In 2023, the Georgia General Assembly unanimously passed and Governor Brian Kemp signed into law House Bill 88, the Coleman-Baker Act. The Coleman-Baker Act, named for Rhonda Sue Coleman and Tara Baker, was significant in addressing cold cases and providing a process for reviewing and investigating unsolved murders in Georgia. Based on the criteria for review, law enforcement agencies attempt to identify probative leads in the form of testimonial and/or scientific evidence that can provide new insight to solving these cold cases. The GBI Cold Case Unit under the Office of Special Investigations was created in July of 2023. The unit is comprised of special agents who were hand-selected based on their experience and demonstrated proficiency and success in conducting complex death investigations. Agents are assigned in various locations throughout the state to conduct in-depth interviews and reviews and analysis of criminal case files that meet the criteria for review. Additionally, an examination of physical evidence is conducted to determine if appropriate forensic testing and analysis was performed or if additional testing would produce information relevant to the investigation. In September of 2023, special agents of the GBI Cold Case Unit partnered with Athens Clarke County investigators to conduct a tireless, in-depth review and analysis of the ongoing investigation into Tara's death. In Tara's biological evidence and DNA science, combined with collaborative investigative work on our law enforcement partners that you see here today that brought us this result. As I mentioned, it is the sheer dedication of investigators and the collaboration with law enforcement partners in Georgia that have brought us here today and will allow us to continue our mission of bringing closure to cold cases throughout the state of Georgia. I want to personally thank Athens Clarke County Police Department, the GBI Division of Forensic Sciences, GBI Region 11 Athens Office, the GBI Appalachian Regional Drug Enforcement Office, the Georgia State Patrol, the FBI Athens and Gainesville offices, the FBI Athens Safe Street Task Force, the District Attorney's Office for the Western Judicial Circuit, and the remarkable work of the GBI's Cold Case Unit. Faith has been defined as the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not yet seen. Assurance is a promise, and with a promise, faith and hope must reside. This is what hope looks like. I would now like to ask Athens Clarke County Police Chief Jerry Salters to the podium for comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. Be brief. 23 years ago, I was a young patrol officer, and I was at this horrific scene when Tara Louise Baker was brutally murdered in Athens Clarke County. It greatly affected our community, the university community, and also the police department. Throughout the years, we have put many resources trying and partnering with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to try to get a lead on this case. For many years, we've met with the family, and I have thought and prayed that one day we will be standing here to announce an arrest in this case, and I am so thankful for all the partnerships. 23 years ago, Jack Lumpkin, former chief, made it a priority to solve this case, and it was my priority when named chief, and I just want to thank all the investigators throughout the years from the evidence they collected 23 years ago, and all the things they've done, continue working the case throughout the years, and so that the family may have some closure. Thank you. And I'm going to be introducing Special Agent in Charge at FBI Atlanta Field Office, Carrie Farley.
Good afternoon. I'll be brief as well. This case is the perfect example of how the FBI, along with our partners, will use every technological advancement to find justice for victims and their families. Without the hard work of each agency here, we would not have the successful resolution that we do today, 23 years later. The determination of agents in the GBI, every officer that ever touched this case, and the FBI has helped reach its final successful conclusion. The FBI would like to thank the GBI and the Athens Clarke County Police Department for their diligence in solving this case and bringing us on board to assist. We are always happy and prepared to bring our expertise to the table, and we look forward to continuing our work with the GBI's Cold Case Unit to solve many more cases. It's my sincere hope that this arrest will help bring closure to Tara's family and loved ones. 23 years is way too long to have to wait. But let this serve as a warning to every murderer, rapist, and thief out there. The FBI, along with our partners, will not give up. While justice in some cases may take years or even decades, we will persist and we will find answers for victims and their families. Thank you. I would like to introduce P.A. Gonzalez.
Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Deborah Gonzalez. I'm the District Attorney in the Western Judicial Circuit, and I myself will be brief as well. First, I would just like to thank the GBI leadership, their Cold Case Unit, the ACCPD, and the FBI, and all of our law enforcement partners in making this happen. When I got into office, this was one of 3 top cold case cases that we had in our office just waiting for when a day like today would come. We know that this may not bring Tara back, but it will hopefully bring for her family some closure and also acknowledgement that we will put in the work to do this. We are happy to continue to shoulder the responsibility of justice along with our law enforcement partners. We will set up now a prosecution team as we have done on other major murder cases and proceed from there, continuing in the partnership to bring this to the justice resolution that it deserves. And we will continue to work with our partners to build a solid case, the way for resolution, for justice, for Tara, her family, and the community. Thank you. I'd like to introduce now State Representative Houston Gaines.
Well, thank you. First and foremost, our prayers and thoughts remain with the Baker family. I've had the honor of getting to know this family over the last year and a half and working together on legislation at the state capitol, and I can tell you their love for Tara and their fight to get to this day is inspiring. While we can never bring Tara back, her memory and her work is still alive today. Last year, through her efforts and through the efforts of her family, we passed the Coleman-Baker Act and funded a cold case unit within the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. The Coleman-Baker Act creates a process for reinvestigating cold cases that have sat for years, like Tara's case. I want to thank the GBI, Athens Clarke County Police Department, FBI, and all law enforcement for their work on this case. Director Hosey, I want to thank you for your call last Thursday to share this news. I'll always remember that phone call, just as I always remember just over a year ago when we introduced the Coleman-Baker Act at the state capitol and had Tara's family with us. And just over a year ago, I think it was May 1st, a year ago, when Governor Kemp signed the Coleman-Baker Act into law in Athens at the courthouse. I can't imagine the journey that the family has gone through and will continue to go through. I know there'll be many more difficult days, but I want to say thank you to this family, because not only are we here today for this important moment, but this is for so many other families as well. The impact that Tara's life will have, the impact the entire Baker family will have on so many other families across this state to solve unsolved homicides. Thank you for what you've done for Tara and for so many other families across this state. I want to now welcome up the Baker family, who I've just been, again, so honored to get to know over the last year and a half, and thank them for all they've done for so many people across this state. Please welcome the Baker family.
Good afternoon. We'd like to thank everyone for being here and for their support during this incredibly difficult time. January 19th, 2001 is a day our family will never forget. Our lives were forever changed and innocence lost through the acts of heinous, senseless violence. We have waited for days, weeks, months, and ultimately 23 years for answers. During that time, the candle for hope, truth, and the strength we carried in our hearts grew dimmer. In April of last year, we watched the governor sign a bill codenamed after our beloved Tara. We told friends, family, legislators, reporters, and anyone that would listen that this bill was not for us. It was Tara's legacy. She was the champion for so many during her life, albeit short, and through this law, she would continue to help others. When we applied for reinvestigation into Tara's case in September, we did so with the understanding and expectation that we may never get our answers. The past few days have been filled with a host of convoluted emotions. As if it were 23 years ago, we grieve. We grieve for Tara. We grieve for those we lost along the way, still waiting for answers. We grieve for the new generation that will never truly understand how amazing their Aunt Tara was. And we grieve for the Foss family. While we understand that this is the first step of many, we are grateful for this day. We ask that you continue to respect our family's privacy. We have a long road ahead of us that will be a roller coaster of emotions and information that hopefully will end in finding justice for Tara. We cannot adequately express our gratitude to the GBI, the ACCPD, especially Chief Salters, who's been with us for the whole ride. Thank you to Mr. Scott Turner, Representative Bill Werkheiser, Representative Gaines, Representative Evans, and Senator Robinson and Senator Frank Ginn, and every state legislator that helped carry this bill from the ground to the finish line. We'd like to thank Governor Kemp for signing the Coleman-Baker Act into law. and Cameron, who's not with us today. But if it weren't for him, we would not be here today. He has become the surrogate baker and little brother we didn't know we needed. And finally, to all the families that are out there still waiting, please do not give up. There is still hope that you will get your answers.
Hello, I'm Tara's mother. I always will be Tara's mother. But there's so many people to thank. I'm so grateful. I want people to know that prayers work. Don't ever stop praying. Don't ever stop having hope in your heart, because it can happen. And I pray today for the Coleman family and for all the others with cold cases, that they will get some answers as well. And there's so many people to thank, but I want to thank Jeremy and Liz from the cold case unit, because they are amazing people and they have kept us so informed all along the way. So please think of our Tara sometimes and the remarkable person she would have become. Hers was a life so full of promise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the press and all the agencies that are here today. On behalf of the entire family, we would like to thank the people that made this possible. Senators Randy Robertson, Frank Ginn, Representatives Stacey Evans, Emory Donahue, and of course, Houston Gaines. And without them, with the assistance of Governor Brian Kemp, all of whom were instrumental in making the Coleman-Baker Act possible. Without them, we would not be here today to discuss this monumental step. And we hope that the criminal justice system that Tara believed in serves justice in the correct way. But again, remember that this is just a step. Her story isn't finished. The book isn't closed on her. If you think about it, the cruel irony is that she was killed 23 years ago, just before her 24th birthday. She's been gone about the same time that she was here. So on behalf of the entire family, I have a humble request for everybody, all those in this room and watching at home. Don't let her story be that of the girl that was killed in Athens that day in 2001. She was so much more than that. Let it be about the story of who she was. Smart, loyal, kind, and even maybe a tad bit shy. She was a friend, a classmate, a sister, and most importantly, she was a beloved daughter. So if we focus on who she was and not about what happened to her, if we can truly do that, then she'll always be with us. And in turn, Tara will truly never be gone. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.
Today, again, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Today's meeting is about Tara. It's about this family that you heard speak here just a moment ago. We will take a few questions, but again, please understand that our question and our answers are going to be very limited due to the investigative and judicial process, so please be respectful of that.
What led to the break of the case?
Investigative work by the cold case unit and Athens.
Can you single out any bit of forensic evidence or something that kind of?
Not at this time. The purpose of the cold case unit and working with these investigators from Athens, Clarke County, and the other investigators in this room is to take a cold case, to look over it, to reinvestigate it, to review it, and see if there is information in there of a probative nature that we can go back and re-interview, whether it be interviews, forensic evidence, whatever the case may be, a successful conclusion like we had today.
Did Tara know Mr. Faust?
There's no connection that we have found in our investigation that indicates that.
Now we know Faust, looking at his arrest history, he had been in and out of the jail several times. He was even arrested less than a month after Tara was killed. why, how often that he was in and out of jail, how is he not tied to her case sooner?
I'm not familiar with his criminal history, the details that you're referring to. And again, I will go back and repeat what I said earlier, that question. We found no connection in the investigation.
You talked about there are some forensic evidence, including DNA. Can you give us any insight into how that played a role here? And was that in combination with fresh eyes coming onto the case?
Everything that we did in that investigation involved fresh eyes, obviously, with the cold case unit, with the investigators involved in this. And what I will say as far as the details there that got us here today is everything was reviewed, whether it be interviews, forensic evidence, whatever the case may be. And then I will stop at that for now, if you don't mind.
Was it more difficult because the person involved in this case as well?
Difficult because it was 23 years old.
Was the evidence that you looked at, was it a new examination of existing evidence, or were you able to come up with, did you examine additional DNA and additional biological evidence to come to the conclusion you did?
Everything, whether it was testimonial or physical evidence, was reviewed and looked back into, is the best way for me to explain that.
So there was no new physical evidence, for example?
It was a review of everything that we had in the investigation.
DA Gonzalez, is it going to be difficulty to prosecute a case that's 23 years old and just got a suspect today, this last week? It's going to be difficult to prosecute that case.
Every case has its challenges, right? We work with our law enforcement to build that case up, and so it is always more of a challenge when it's an older case, but we do believe that we're going to be able to do what needs to be done in this case to get justice.
If I could ask the chief to talk a little bit more about the feelings that you have coming full circle this way, having been, I believe you said, on the scene at the time.
Sure. I think for a lot of law enforcement officers throughout the years, it's been greatly affected by this case. The Baker family is a wonderful family. And again, that night being on that scene and being there till 2:30 in the morning as investigators processed everything. And then afterwards, you live with those cases. And so for many nights, I've prayed for that family and thought about them. And then seeing billboards of terror up in the Athens community. And then becoming an investigator and actually working on this case at a certain point, it affects you because you really would like to see justice for that family and for Tara. And so to see it come full circle, it's just a blessing. So I'm happy for the family.
Does the GBI expect to have more press conferences like this now that the bill is signed into law last year and the cold case unit is looking more and more into cases that have gone cold?
We're solving more cases.
With regard to your analysis of the biological and DNA evidence, did the technology exist 23 years ago that you used this time to analyze the physical evidence? In other words, could you have used existing technology back then the way you used it now to get the conclusion you got?
I'll answer it this way, and I've kind of already answered it. The best way I know how at this point in time is this case, like many others out there, required a review of fresh eyes to reevaluate everything in the investigation, whether it be interviews or evidence. And new technology plays into that. That we're working in our crime labs across the state and utilizing that every way that we can to help solve these cases. And I'll say too, before we stop, is I apologize if I'm not answering the questions the way the importance and the magnitude of this investigation. And there is a lot of work left to be done in this by all agencies involved. And we again appreciate you being here. I just ask for your understanding in that and please understand as we move forward with this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Someone spell the names
Thank
of
you.
Tara's family members for us?